Howdy all, welcome on to Goose Talks Film. I'm your host Goose, where we do weekly movie reviews and sometimes even multiple times a week, like we are this week. Yesterday we covered Jurassic World Rebirth, and today we are covering Final Destination Bloodlines. Uh, Taking me a while to review this one, unfortunately, but hopefully now I'm reviewing it. Probably more people have seen it. They saw it at the movies, they've now seen it on digital. So yeah, we're tackling it today. It is the sixth installment in the Final Destination films. And as always, I will be rambling on for a short period of time, which will be completely spoiler free. And that's for the people that haven't seen the movie yet and just kind of want to hear my thoughts on if they're thinking of watching or, anything like that. And then I'll give a big warning when I'm jumping into the spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want it spoiled, I'll give you big enough warning that you can pause it, watch it, come back, listen, and see if you share my thoughts. Or if you don't, let me know in the comments or in a review. But anyway, we are doing a review on Final Destination Bloodlines. So I've been a big fan of the Final Destination franchise since I think a lot of people around my age, our first movie was actually Final Destination 3. Back in, I think it was 2006, it was back in I think it was Austar still back then, but Austar, Foxtel, same thing, was paid TV here in Australia. Movie One, which was the movie channel that was all the new movies that, they were within a few months of release. And that would be your channel that you'd want to watch new movies on. Every Sunday night, it would premiere. The first time you could watch a big new release movie would be a double header on a Sunday. It'd be 6 p.m. and then 8:30 p.m., sometimes 9 p.m. if it was a long first movie. And that was your double header for their premieres. And then after the premiere, they would then feature throughout the week at different times of day, blah, blah, blah. Like a lot of you people probably already know how pay TV or cable works, depending on what country and whatever you call it. But yeah, I remember it premiered late on the Sunday night, and my parents didn't let me watch it. So I then was on school holidays, I think, luckily, and I ended up watching it during the day, which kind of benefited. But I watched, number 3, and that was like probably a year before I went to a theme park in Gold Coast. So kind of ruined myself a bit in that sense. But Jurassic Park 3. See, I've got Jurassic on my world, on my brain. See, Jurassic World on my brain. Okay. Final Destination 3, obviously set at a theme park. It's the roller coaster disaster that people die on the roller coaster. That's a lot of people's, not only their first movie of the franchise that they see, and that makes them fall in love with the franchise, but it's also their favourite, and I'm among that. And that's probably nostalgia glasses firmly on, but I think that it has a lot of good characters and also shit characters that you can't wait to see die in very fucked up ways. So I think it always has a good balance. And then I obviously went back and watched the previous two, and then as the new ones came out, I watched them. And then we've waited 14 years for a new Final Destination film. So I wasn't sure if we were ever going to get one, but we got one in 2025, and it did extremely well at the box office. I was surprised it got the budget that it did, considering it was 14 years. The previous movie did okay at the box office. I'll just get the numbers up here. So the previous one had $40 million budget, and it made $157 million. So it would have been quite profitable because the marketing wouldn't have been over the top. And also, back in 2011, they still would have made really good DVD/Blu-ray money, which is kind of non-existent now, but they kind of rely on digital. But people are just willing to wait now. They know that a movie could be on streaming within 3 to 6 months. So that market's kind of fucked up, but it would have done really well on the DVD, home video market, it was still called back then. But Bloodlines was $10 million budget more, but, 14 years, inflation, blah, blah, blah. So it's given $50 million budget, which is very, very decent budget for a horror movie, especially an extravagant horror movie like this. It made $284 million at the box office. It is the highest grossing Final Destination movie in the franchise, to my knowledge. And it would definitely be in a lot of people's top 2, top 3 of the franchise. Now there's 6 films. Easy to do a top 3 when there's 6 movies and not 3. Kind of just defeats the purpose. But anyway, Final Destination Bloodlines. This is the short, spoiler-free description. Plagued by a recurring violent nightmare, a college student returns home to find the one person who can break the cycle and save her family from the horrific fate that inevitably awaits them. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, without getting into spoilers, obviously, but just talking about what everyone knows, that it was a very interesting concept of them doing one back in the 60s and involving so many people in the premonition. I think it was the most probably on par with 5 with the bridge collapse, with the amount of people that would have died. Maybe a bit less, maybe more. But, compared to the first movie, which would have been quite a lot as well on a plane. But I think that, oh, actually, no, I think I'm wrong here. I think definitely number 3 is the least, and 2 would then be a bit less. But anyway, 1, 5, and 6 would be the 3 with the most deaths, I would say. Um, yeah, I just kind of proved myself wrong in real time just then. But yeah, I think it was really interesting to come up with this concept. Like when you're doing a new installment of not only a popular franchise, but a very popular franchise. A lot of horror nuts I talk to, this is their favorite horror franchise or in their top 3 horror franchises. So, and a lot of people say that when I talk to them. Like it's not just a handful; it's a lot of people, and they love this franchise because it's silly, but it's also very fucked up as well. If you want to go to the movies or sit at home on your couch and watch a lot of fucked up, gory deaths in very silly ways, then this is a movie. And they could easily have just gone through the motions with this film and just focused on, all right, let's do elaborate kill, elaborate kill, elaborate kill, and focus solely on the kills, and then it's kind of, oh, we'll just do characters and some story around it. Because that's what I felt number 4 was like. I thought 4 is definitely the weakest in the franchise. I never look forward to really rewatching that one because I don't think it has many redeeming qualities at all. Whereas I love rewatching 1, 3, 5, and then number 6 will be on that as well. Number 2, I don't hate watching it or getting to it when I have a Final Destination marathon. I enjoy it, but I don't look forward to it as much as the others that I previously mentioned. And yeah, Bloodlines would definitely be in that rotation of the ones I do look forward to watching. But I appreciate that they really not really taking a risk, but they did something very different. They obviously thought about an idea that let's do something different with the franchise. What hasn't really been focused on that much, and it's the Bloodline idea of what happens if not only one person creates a big family that they weren't meant to start, but hundreds of people go on to live lives and have kids, and they then have kids, they have grandkids and all that they shouldn't have ever had because they should have died before they had kids. It's a very interesting concept, and whoever thought of it, I don't know if it was a screenwriter that thought of it or if it was a producer or whoever, and then hired the writers and said, yep, here's the idea, write a really good script. But yeah, if you're after crazy deaths, funny character, because there's always anyway, with a good Final Destination movie, always has the good comedic relief character that makes you laugh and you kind of sad when they die. This movie has that. Good kills, good comedic relief, has, a fairly decent lead character, I would say. I wouldn't say lead characters. There's the brother and his sister, but the brother isn't really in it enough for me to say that I would call him a main character, but maybe a pivotal character, I guess, because he's part of the bloodline. But there's different kills in this. I think the involvement of I don't know what they call them. They were a very big thing in America. We never had them here in Australia, but like in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I think there was a big long tower, and the restaurant and bar and all that was at the very top in a big circle. It was completely glass around it and glass bottom, and you just took an elevator all the way up. They were really big in America. Americans would probably be able to speak better than me, but we never got hit them here in Australia. I always thought they were creepy looking because I remember seeing them in The Simpsons and I thought I would never ever want to be in one. And then for them to have that, the focus of the premonition, and that is the first premonition back in the 60s with all the people dying. That was very cool, very good idea, and that builds into natural figs. A lot of people look at that stuff, or even just skyscrapers in general, and would say, "I would hate to have an office at the 200th floor, the 100th floor, blah blah blah." So I think it hasn't really been focused on in the series previously, so I think that's very cool. There's really not heaps to talk about in the spoiler-free territory. But would I recommend this? I think if you're a Final Destination fan and for whatever reason you haven't seen this, if you were hesitant, if you just never got the chance to go to the movies and you just haven't got it on digital yet, if you call yourself a Final Destination fan, this is a must-watch. If you enjoyed 5, liked 5, or even loved 5, then you will definitely, at the very bare minimum, really enjoy this. It is different in some ways, but it doesn't stray away from the franchise's roots, because there's nothing worse than a movie that people say, "Oh, that sequel was so good," but I'm like, if it had a different title, you could have said it wasn't even part of the franchise at all. But this movie isn't like that. It is Final Destination through and through. It doesn't really retcon anything. It kind of takes avenues that weren't focused on, so they're not really retconning or pushing back on anything that was established in the first film or in the first few films. It kind of capitalizes, the writers capitalize on things that hadn't really been talked about much in terms of what happens if the main character was pregnant in the premonition and she survives and has a kid who was never meant to exist ever. And not only that, but then it's hundreds of people then go on to have kids that should never have happened. Very cool idea. It fits into the theme. The best Final Destination movies, I think, have a strong lead, have really memorable kills, and have the overall theme and the premonition being very memorable. That's why I love number 3. Who's not scared of roller coasters or just theme park rides in general? And this movie brought that back, brought that to life in 2006 and created a very good story around it. I thought the 2 leads in number 3 were phenomenal, along with the 2 leads, the male and female lead, Devon Sawa, and I forgot her name, which I'm going to Ali Lada, I think it is, in the original. To me, those are the 2 best 2 leads, 1 and 3. You can't go past them. They're so good. I thought the 5's leads were pretty good. And the guy that goes crazy was really good as well. That turns out to kind of be a bad guy. In Bloodlines, I wouldn't say that it's the strongest lead we've had, but I think the actress did a very good job that made me care about her. I thought the cousin, which is Eric, played by Richard Harmon, who is kind of getting relatively well known now in the acting space. He was the standout. He was phenomenal. It's nothing against the lead actress, which was Caitlin Santajuana, who plays Stephanie. He was just a scene stealer. And I think the best horror movies have a scene stealer that isn't the lead, may not have heaps of scenes or even a lot of like big scenes to be a part of, but he was great. I mean, and I'm talking to a lot of people that have seen this movie. He was definitely one of, if not the standout. Awesome performance. Obviously, Tony Todd. The reveal with him in the middle of the movie was very, very cool. I'll get into it where we get to the spoiler territory. But when I'm talking about them capitalizing on things that were never touched on and wasn't retconning anything by any stretch, I think was very smart. They really did the homework on the franchise and everything. And Tony Todd's role particularly, we'll touch on that later. But and Tony Todd, who people that don't know, he's obviously, I think, most famous for his portrayal of Candyman from the Candyman slasher film series, one of the biggest slasher villains of the 90s and probably just in general. I would put him kind of like top mid-tier, just below your Freddy Krueger's, your Myers, your Jason Voorhees, because his performance was just, it's not only his voice, he's just his performance and his just screen presence was always phenomenal, but it was also probably secondly well known in the Final Destination franchise. He wasn't in every film, but he was in a few, as kind of that character that would kind of pop up. He was kind of a coroner. I'm pretty sure he was a coroner on EMP. No, I'm pretty sure he was a coroner, and he would kind of just throw lines at the characters about death and try and give them hints and whatnot. And yeah, his speech, because he clearly was dying during production. He died almost a year ago, I think. So he died not long after the movie had finished, well, at least his scenes were finished filming. I'm so glad he got to finish filming his scene. And it came out afterwards that a lot of his speech towards the end was ad-lib, that they said to him, here's a couple of minutes, you say what you want to say, if it's a good blah, blah, blah. And it's very touching what he says. I won't repeat what he says. I kind of want you to watch it. And if you're a fan of him as an actor, and if you've maybe, like me, lost someone to cancer very recently, like myself, I think that what he says is very touching. It's very meaningful. And I can't imagine what his family was going through when he passed. And then I'm guessing they would have maybe watched the film as his last performance and him delivering those lines, because it's just so touching. It's so sad, man. He was very beloved in the film industry. And I think it was, honestly, I'll use the word disgusting that he wasn't in the in memoriam at the Oscars. If you're not going to include everyone that made an impact on screen, then just don't do one. Release it just on your YouTube channel and do a 30, 40-minute in memoriam on YouTube. You can't be leaving people out. That's just not right. It's just not right. But anyway, enough of my annoyances. But yeah, that's probably all I'll talk about in the spoiler-free territory. So if you haven't seen the film and you do not want it spoiled, this is a warning. Pause. Go watch the movie in your own convenience. Come back, listen, see if we share the same thoughts. If we do, we don't. Please let me know in the comments or in a review. If you're watching this as a video version on YouTube, then please leave a comment down below what your thoughts are about the movie and where would you rank it amongst the other Final Destination films. Just like the Jurassic World / Jurassic Park franchise, I will be doing a tier list of ranking all the movies in this franchise on my YouTube channel exclusively very, very soon. So make sure you're subscribing to Goose Talks Film over on YouTube if you are listening to this. And make sure you're following me on whatever podcasting app you listen to me on. I'm available on almost every podcasting app. So yeah, that's your warning. We'll jump into the spoiler territory. And as we always do here on Goose Talks Film, I'll read the full synopsis. Most of it has been made available. So it's quite longish. It's probably actually surprisingly longer than the Jurassic World Rebirth one, which is funny because Jurassic World Rebirth goes for about 2 hours and 20 minutes, whereas this goes for a flat 110 minutes. So that's quite funny. This is probably a bit more in depth, I guess, with the kills and whatnot. But yeah, so please bear with me. This is a full plot synopsis. College student Stephanie Rise is plagued by recurring nightmares of her maternal grandparents, Iris and Paul Campbell, dying while attending the opening of the Skyview, a high-rise restaurant tower following a deadly chain reaction collapsing the structure, with everyone in it at her New York area hometown, Cloverdale, in 1969. Despite knowing that the tower never had collapsed because it was demolished without incident, she returns home seeking answers and is greeted by her father, Marty, and younger brother, Charlie. The siblings visit their uncle Howard, Aunt Brenda, and cousins Eric, Julia, and Bobby. When Stephanie asks Howard about Iris, he explains that Iris subjected him and Stephanie's mother, Darlene, to an overprotective and isolated upbringing, resulting in the kids being taken from her. The trauma caused Darlene to abandon her own family. Brenda helps Stephanie find letters from Iris, which leads her to a fortified cabin where a cancer-ridden Iris now lives. Iris explains Stephanie that the nightmares she's having were her premonition. She warned the tower's attendees and prevents its collapse after receiving the forewarning, which led to its closure. However, she disrupted Death's design. Death began to take the lives of the survivors in the order they would have died in the Skyview along with their respective descendants. After Paul's death, Iris documented Death's actions until she got cancer, during which Stephanie's nightmares began manifesting. Believing her grandmother is insane, Stephanie tries to leave. Iris follows her outside the cabin to give her the book and allows herself to be impaled by the weather vane to prove her claims. At Iris' funeral, Darlene returns, but Stephanie resents her for being absent since childhood. Stephanie reads Iris' book and sees a reference to JB, who found someone who defeated death. During a family barbecue, a series of events cause Howard to be killed by his lawnmower. After Howard's funeral, Stephanie tries to warn her family that death is coming for Iris' descendants in order of age, starting with Howard's branch of the family before moving on to Darlene's, but they are skeptical. Another series of events causes a fire at Eric's tattoo shop, but his leather clothing protects him before he escapes. Stephanie and Charlie meet Eric the following day to try and protect him as he's next in line, but Julie is crushed to death by a garbage truck's compactor instead. The family is confused at Eric being skipped, but Brenda reveals that he was the product of an affair and not part of Iris' bloodline. Darlene suggests visiting JB at a hospital, who turns out to be William Bloodworth. Present at the Skyview as a child with his mother and the last to die in the premonition, he reveals that after his mother died, Iris tracked him down and he has since tried to learn Death's rules with her. He explains to the family that there are two ways to defeat death: taking another life or being clinically dead and being resuscitated, citing Kimberly Corman as a successful example. Bloodworth leaves, expecting to succumb to his own cancer after Iris' bloodline dies, and wishes the family luck before departing. Eric convinces Bobby to employ Bloodworth's second strategy, giving Bobby a snack containing nuts to trigger fatal allergic reaction and be subsequently revived. The plan backfires when a malfunctioning MRI machine rips out Eric's piercings, pulls him in, and impales him with a wheelchair. A coil from a vending machine is then launched into Bobby's head. Stephanie, Charlie, and Darlene decide to drive to Iris's cabin, defending for Darlene to hide from death. They crash through the front gate and Stephanie's seatbelt jams. The cabin explodes, sending the RV into water where Stephanie begins to drown. Darlene saves Charlie before a lamp post bisects her, and Charlie rescues and resuscitates Stephanie. 1 week later, the physician father of Charlie's prom date tells his siblings that Stephanie was not clinically dead after drowning. Suddenly, a chain reaction causing a timber carrying train to derail in the neighborhood, and the cargo crushes and kills Stephanie and Charlie. The end. All right, I was almost out of breath for that one. I'll just touch on the things I really liked. Then I was talking about the character of Eric, portrayed by Richard Harmon, he was super fun. He was hilarious. He was kind of very realistic in the sense, like what some people would react to. And that's not original. We have a lot of characters throughout each Final Destination film that kind of in the same boots as him. He just portrays it very well, in a very believable and very humorous way. I really did like the twist of the reason why he survived death. Nothing got skipped was because he wasn't part of the actual bloodline. He was the result of an affair, which I think was a very good twist. I didn't even think that as a possibility. I thought that was very cool. That because obviously this is the first time they're doing the bloodline thing in Final Destination about, not only the people that survived death and are they forever having to look over their shoulder, blah, 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 but also the people that had nothing to do with the premonition, weren't even alive for the premonition that they survived, are then going to be killed for no reason, like no doing of their own. I think it's very interesting. And then throwing that twist in the first time you do that concept, very smart. Because I think if you were then to do another Bloodline sequel that focuses on a story similar to this and then do the twist, it wouldn't have hit as well. People more likely to guess it because then there'd be time between people doing all these theories and, what happens if they did this twist and what happens if they survived because they're not actually the children of the bloodline, blah, blah, blah. So I think they executed it very well. I thought it was very good. It made sense that they did it with the oldest kid. Well, they thought of the oldest kid of the bloodline because then they can kind of go past it and then you kind of think, oh, wow, is he going to be like the final guy, or one of the final survivors? But no, he gets killed. And I didn't mind the reasoning that they pretty much gave for that was because you don't get in Death's way, pretty much. Was he was trying to save his brother and Death didn't like it, so Death killed them both. So he was the second to be killed, essentially, before his brother, the sister being the first one killed. So didn't mind it, didn't love it, didn't mind it. I thought Tony Todd as Bloodworth being the boy, the young boy, the son of the jazz singer that is the last person to actually die. So he gets saved by Iris. She dies, and then he dies pretty much immediately after. Never crossed my mind that it could have been him. And then I think that was never planned, obviously, from the first appearance of Bloodworth, Tony Todd in the first movie. But his origins and all that were never, ever revealed or anything like that because he wasn't a major character. He was in 1 or 2 scenes every film. So I think it was such a good idea of them saying, hey, let's give him a backstory. The reason why he is talking to the main characters of each film about death and blah, 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 is because he's a survivor of a premonition. Like, he is living proof that you can kind of not so much escape death, but you can prolong death taking you. And, I thought that was very cool. I didn't mind that at all. I thought that was very cool to kind of give Tony Todd's character Bloodworth a little bit more before it's the last time we see him on screen. So that was a very cool send-off, giving him a backstory, giving him a bit more. And also him mentioning Kimberly Corman, who was the main, like the main character from Final Destination 2. She's the main protagonist. She's the one that obviously gets resuscitated and she survives from that and skips the queue. That was cool, a little throwback, because they've done that a lot in the Final Destination movies. I know Final Destination 3, they obviously go back and look at Devon Sawa's character when they mention the plane crash. And obviously the big twist, one of my favorite all-time twists is Final Destination 5, where it's actually a prequel to the original, and the original, like the characters from Final Destination 5 die on the plane crash from the first film. Just expertly done. That's why I'm always a advocate for just doing more of these horror movies, doing more sequels because they can get better. It's been proven over and over. Wrong Turn. A lot of people say Wrong Turn 2 or Wrong Turn 3 are the best. I say Wrong Turn 3 is the best, followed by Wrong Turn 2 and then 1. Uh, Elm Street, number 3 is clearly the best. Friday the 13th, a lot of people say 2 or 4 or possibly 5 are the best. I'd say 2 is the best. So, same like I say, Final Destination, I say Final Destination 3 is the best. So, I don't, just because one, like Final Destination 4 was commercially and critically, I think commercially did okay, but critically, fans of the franchise and just critics in general hated the film, including myself. But they still made number 5, and it was so much better than 4, and they made 6, and 6 is better than 5. Although 5 has an amazing twist. Just keep making these sequels that just get these. Sorry, I'm going off track here, but the director of this film, one of the directors of this film, Zach Lipovsky, I'm not saying he's a terrible director, but he's directed some terrible films. You look him up on IMDb, see the movies that he's directed, and think, how the fuck did this guy land a directing role of one of the most anticipated horror sequels of the last few years? And he didn't say nailed it, did a very good job. So that just blows my mind. But yeah, just keep making sequels, man. I want big wig fat cat executives to keep on funding these horror movies because they're doing really well at the box office and they're doing really well critically. And they're doing really good at award shows, except the Oscars because they're fuckwits. But just keep making them, man. Like horror just has so much untapped potential, and that sounds so silly considering how long horror's been around and how many movies being pumped out because of low budgets, etc., etc. But look at the horror movies we're getting in the last few years that are so original and so good. Substance, Late Night with the Devil, Talk to Me. Like, there's just so many. Just keep making horror movies. But anyway, yeah. So, and I already touched on earlier. Tony Todd, aka Bloodworth's speech was very touching, very emotional. And if you're for some reason listening to this podcast and you have no intention of watching the film for whatever reason, try and find on YouTube the speech from Tony Todd. It'll move you and it'll definitely touch a chord, I'm sure. It was very well delivered from him. You can tell he was quite ill and struggling. So I think it was very good of him to also be a part of this. He could have just said no. He could have said, look, I just want to live out my last days or my last weeks, months, whatever it was, in peace without being on screen, without having to be on a set working. But no, he wanted to do it for whatever reason, for the fans, for his family, for his legacy, whatever it was, he did it. And I appreciate him for it because I've always loved him. His voice work also is very underrated. His Venom will always be my favorite. Anyway, but yeah, I thought the kills are very cool. I thought the character, one of the first times we've seen this where the character actually predicts how someone's going to die. Like they actually looked and said, oh, it's the soccer ball, the leaf blower, and the hatchet or the garbage truck. They literally almost planned out to a T. And I also liked that she wasn't fully 100% accurate either, because that just made sense. It would be silly if she got 100% accurate, but she's obviously got a bit of a gift like her grandmother Iris, because she's obviously having premonitions through Iris's eyes. So I think it's very cool to have such a self-aware character in this franchise, because they hadn't really done that before. That actually goes, oh, boom, boom, boom. We know the ones of, oh, yeah, this is a kill order because this is how we all died in the premonition in order, blah, blah, blah. But not someone going, oh, this is going to lead to that, that's going to lead to this, and this is going to lead to how this person dies. So that was very cool. Yeah, I already mentioned the twist with Eric about how he survives it because he wasn't part of the bloodline. But yes, what is her name? The sister. I cannot seem to find the sister's name, which is going to really not Julia. Yeah, her death with the soccer ball and the garbage truck was very quite gruesome. I wasn't sure how they were going to do her getting killed in the garbage truck. Like, we just going to see the walls close in and the blood splurt out like a fountain. But no, her head literally gets crushed like Friday the 13th, part 6 or 7 style, where her head kind of essentially gets squished so much it kind of like separates from the top to the bottom, which was very gruesome and like very full on. But yeah, no, that was a good kill. I thought, yeah, Eric's death in the what do you call it, the MRI machine was like, it was very cringy. I don't have piercings, but I could just imagine slowly all of his piercings getting ripped out of his skin. Was like very entertaining, very well done, but very cringeworthy. And then him being obviously pulled in and then getting decapitated and then was pretty full on. And then the brother was a very gruesome, like getting the screws or whatever through his head after, and his face is all fucked up from the peanut allergy. That was getting two full on and very gruesome, cringeworthy deaths within like a minute or two of each other was a nice touch. And tonally, I don't think it affected the movie that much, but it was very entertaining and very full on. I think the lawnmower death, the first death of the bloodline with the dad, I think that was very silly on purpose. I think like it, because that was shown in the trailer, and I wish I didn't say the trailer, but it pretty much shown the entire scene in a trailer. It's like one of those trailers where they show like a 2-minute scene where it's like such a long build up to things, and it's kind of like a red herring of the what do you call it, the hoe being under the trampoline. You think, oh, someone's gonna go through the trampoline, get decapitated, or whatever it is, but no, it gets moved, and then it leads to something else happening, and the dad's head being eaten by a lawnmower, which is pretty full on. It's not the first time I've seen that in a horror movie. Is it the first time we've seen that in Final? I feel as though we have seen that or something similar in Final Destination, but yeah, some of these kills very good. Obviously the logs at the end from the train decapitating the main characters, the brother and the sister, was obviously a callback to one of those memorable deaths, not only in Final Destination franchise, but in fucking horror movie franchise. I am forever scarred from driving behind log trucks. And obviously where I live in a small town here in Australia, I drive past and behind a lot of log trucks, and I still keep as much fucking distance as I can. So that was a very cool callback. Do any of these deaths, would they be in the conversation for the best deaths in the franchise? Probably not. I think there's some very, very good ones that would probably trump it. I mean, it's all subjective. Everyone's got their own opinions. Please let me know down in the comments or in a review about what you think are the best deaths or the most memorable deaths in the whole Final Destination franchise, and also what was the most memorable best death scene from Bloodlines. I'd like to know both answers to those questions. I would say the log truck decapitation and the sunbathing, baking those two chicks alive in number 3 would probably be the top 2 for me. I think were just so full on, so fucked up. And the other deaths are obviously one's during a premonition and one's after. Which, yeah, the deaths in the premonition and Bloodlines was also very silly. But it worked. Like, they were sillier than usual. Like, they were more comedic than usual. But the movie itself didn't have an overall comedic tone. It was still taking itself quite serious. Outside of Eric, really. So, yeah, the barbecue scene and the premonition scene on the restaurant tower were very silly, but they worked. Like, they were still kind of cringy, like making you go, oh shit, that's full on. Like, people getting set on fire, and I think the deaths always kind of hit me. Like, even from watching Titanic as a kid, when you see people falling from a distance, and it's not close up on them or anything, but you see like their head hit a beam, and you just see the blood splatter on the beam, and like their head kind of just either get decapitated off their body or go to one side, or you see a limb hit something and snaps in half, or you see someone getting cut in half, hitting a beam. Those deaths have always affected me. There was quite a few in this as well. And it was so cringe when the husband, like Iris's husband, when the dance floor collapses and he's holding on, and the glass floor has obviously completely fallen through except for the edges, and he's holding on to the edge. It's obviously serrated glass, not broken glass, and he's holding on, trying not to fall, and his hands are slipping. He's trying to grab on, and there's blood going everywhere. He's cutting his hands, and he ends up falling. And then I think he hits his head or something on a beam as well. So that was like a very full-on death. But yeah, there wasn't super memorable death in the premonition, except for, which is not so much a callback, but similar to the sheet of glass scene from Another Boy in Final Destination. I think that's 3. Or is that 4? One of them anyway. It's in the middle anyway. But the little asshole boy getting crushed by a piano. That was full on as fuck. And that's one thing that Final Destination does not give a fuck is about killing kids. Well, kids of a certain age, and they also like most of the time, not just Final Destination, but other movies, they make the kids assholes to kind of justify them killing off kids on screen. But it was done so silly, and it was obviously just I guess you can also argue that seeing his death on screen, he obviously went on to die, but we don't know how and how old he was at the time. But it was just a premonition. It didn't actually really happen. So that's how they get away with it. But I don't know. It's horror, man. Some of them just don't give a fuck. But yeah, I think the kills were enjoyable. I don't think the kills like missed at all. I just don't think that any of the kills from this movie would be in the conversation for the best. But if you disagree, please, like I said, let me know in the comments. Yeah, I thought the actress that plays Iris, like the younger version of Iris, I know her from Stargirl. Not that I've ever seen Stargirl, but I have seen clips and I am familiar with the show. So it's good that, yeah, she's getting roles in horror. For some reason, I think that she just suits horror. Like, I would love to see her in another movie, in another role where it's set in the 60s or the 50s and it's a horror movie. I think she just suits it. Like, she just fits that time period. I thought she did a very, very good job of convincing me that this was set in the late 60s. So, yeah, I thought the cast was good. I've already said, Richard Harmon and Tony Todd for me are the two standouts. They'll be the ones I like stand out to me that I'll be thinking about afterwards. I thought the older version of Iris was good as well. She also reminds me of the actress that played the older version of the original character from the final Texas Chainsaw movie that Netflix did in like 2020, where she wasn't the original actress, but she took on the role. The actress playing Iris reminded me of her. She was also in Tarot as well, as a very similar type character, like our Iris in this movie. But yeah, that's pretty much all I'll pretty much talk about, I think. But if you haven't told, I did love this movie. Look, I'm always going to kind of review these types of movies, horror movies specifically, a bit differently than your Oscar bait movies and like your dramatic movies and all those, because they are their own thing. Like, yeah, they're silly and all that, but they are entertaining and they are what they are. Like, they're just so entertaining. So yeah, like I said, definitely would recommend this. God, I'm stirring a lot in this. I think it's because I'm so excited, but I will be rewatching this for sure within the next few months. A bit like Jurassic World Rebirth, I think. The last two movies I've reviewed for this podcast, I've wanted to rewatch, which is always a good sign. I think both films will be in the running for some categories in the second annual Golden Goose Awards, film awards at the end of the year. If you're familiar with Golden Goose Awards and like all the categories and whatnot, I will be bringing in a few new categories as well, including best kill or best death scene and best action sequence. So both films could be nominated in any of those categories. They could be nominated for, Jurassic World Rebirth could be nominated for best action sci-fi film. Final Destination Bloodlines could be nominated for best horror film, even best overall film. Who knows? But yeah, if you are familiar with the awards and you know the categories, let me know what you think Final Destination Bloodlines could be nominated for at the Golden Goose Awards, because we all know it's more important than the Oscars these days, because I actually give a fuck about every genre. Horror, sci-fi, romance, action, comedy. Doesn't matter what it is, animation. I'm going to watch them all. I've watched so many movies all year to make sure I don't miss out on any possible movies that could be nominated at the awards. And unlike that ridiculous rule they've just brought in at the Oscars, that should have always been a rule that every voter needs to watch every movie that they're voting on in that category. Of course you should have to. It's just a popularity contest. Otherwise, like, fucking hell. Anyway, yeah, please let me know in the comments. But as we do here on Goose Talks Film, I will finish off with a bout of trivia. Hopefully this movie's got a little bit of trivia. I do always enjoy reading the trivia. Final film of actor Tony Todd before his death. He was visibly in rough shape while filming, but he pushed through to reprise his iconic role. That's a man love. Big love to him, man. Tony Todd was allowed total creative control over his final scene, since he clearly didn't have much time left and the crew wanted him to have the final word of his career. His final monologue was one that the crew encouraged him to use to impart some last advice to fans. That's what I mean, man. Like, that was so very cool of the crew, the director, the producers, the writers to let him do that. Like, big love. Not everyone does that. You might think that they would. They don't. So big love to everyone involved in that. Producer Craig Perry said at Deadline in an interview that those on set knew the project was likely to be Tony Todd's last while they were filming it. We all knew that he was obviously quite ill, and it was pretty clear that this was going to be the last role he would play in a movie, Perry tells the trade. And the fact that it was one of the Final Destination movies made it that much more poignant, I should say. Though the outlet doesn't go into detail, the upcoming movie apparently explains why Bloodworth is so familiar with Death's plans in other films, leaving him able to warn characters of what is coming. This is apparently done during a climactic monologue which was adjusted due to the gravity of Todd's condition. So it's pretty much what we already touched on, but yeah, that's just very cool of them, like I said. In the previous films of the franchise, the producers tried to schedule the filming of a character's death scene on the actor's last day of filming. During the making of the film, most of the actors had to film their death scene on their very first day. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I wonder why they did that. Is that just scheduling, or was that like their intention for some reason? 71-year-old stuntwoman Yvette Ferguson came out of retirement for a fire stunt in the premonition scene, which director Zach Lipovsky believes to be a world record for the oldest person set on fire on camera. Ferguson admitted to enjoy the experience and recounted how the makeup artist would encourage her by turning on songs like Burn, Baby Burn and Great Balls of Fire. That's very cool of her, man. I've never heard of it before, but she's a badass woman. That's a badass woman right there. Bloodworth's final scene initially ended with the line, "Now that my old friend is gone, I'm retiring. I'm going to enjoy the time I have left." The brief monologue after that was a product of the directors asking Tony to speak from the heart. Yeah, wow, yeah. I'm glad they didn't just stick with the "I'm retiring, I'm going to enjoy the time I have left," and they did a bit more with that. In real life, Owen Patrick Joyner has a deathly peanut allergy, just like his character Bobby. Oh wow! I wonder if that was just a mad coincidence, or if in the script it was like a different allergen, or they didn't really specify in the script, or something else. Interesting. When Darlene lists off possible names of the hospital, she says Claire Rivers, who is the protagonist of the first Final Destination, also appears in Final Destination 2. Yeah, very cool callback. I love callbacks, man. When Iris and her boyfriend pull up to the venue in the opening scene, their car license plate reads FL818E, an obvious reference to the original film's infamous Flight 180. I didn't pick up on that. That's so cool. How did I pick up on that? On September 23, 2022, Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein were officially announced as co-directors for the project. The directing duo are passionate fans of the series and even went so far as to orchestrate a death scene during their pitch meeting to the studio over Zoom, using a combination of pre-recorded footage and visual effects involving a fire and malfunctioning spinning ceiling fan, which broke from the ceiling and decapitated one of the filmmakers. Those involved in the meeting, including executive and producers, erupted into laughter. Yeah, wow. Hey, if you're passionate about something, got to do the crazy pictures, man. The beer the family is drinking during the barbecue is Hearst Pale Ale, a fictional brand that has appeared in the series since Final Destination 2. Yeah, did I know that? I don't know. While Stephanie running after the garbage truck was scripted, her grabbing onto the ladder connected to the truck was not. Despite being told not to physically touch the truck for safety reasons, Caitlin Santa-Juana improvised in the heat of the moment. Yeah, wow. That's ballsy. Iris is currently the oldest known visionary in the entire franchise. She's also the first visionary in the Final Destination franchise who is not a main protagonist. This is the last one we'll do. Unlike previous installments, the directors encouraged improvisation and ad-libbing by the main cast during rehearsals. Most of their improvised interactions were added to the final cut. That's what the best directors will do. I mean, you see it all the time. If they know the actors they're working with, even like youngish actors, inexperienced actors, if they know the cast they're working with is going to benefit from that, and they let them do that, big props. It's also the longest Final Destination movie. There you go. I wouldn't have guessed that because it breezed by because I'm having so much fun. Anyway, that'll bring the podcast to an end. Thanks again for listening to Goose Talks Film. Very much appreciated. Whatever you're listening to this on or watching this over on YouTube, I very do much appreciate it. I'm getting back in the swing of things. I had an infection for 8 weeks, so I couldn't record. I just had a very rough year, which was meant to be my biggest year in terms of podcasting, but it just hasn't turned out that way. But life's life, right? We've got to just take it as it comes, ride the waves, they always say. But I will be hopefully kicking off a Patreon very soon, doing some very cool content over there. But I won't give any details or anything like that until I've kind of locked it all in and it's ready to go and ready for you guys to sign up if you want to, of course. everything will stay the same. It's just more extra content will be over there. Nothing's changing in terms of me taking all my stuff to Patreon or anything like that, of course. And yeah, I'll obviously be doing YouTube exclusive videos as well, on top of the exclusives on Patreon. I'll be doing like tier lists, like ranking movies in a franchise over on YouTube, like doing tier lists, ranking all the Final Destination movies, same as Jurassic World, the Rocky movies, all those. I'll be doing all of them at least probably once a month, maybe twice a month. We'll see where we go in terms of scheduling. But yes, making sure you're subscribing to YouTube so you don't miss out on that stuff. But make sure you're following me on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, both under Goose Talks Film, so you don't miss out on any updates of those upcoming exclusives. And yeah, as always, here on Goose Talks Film, make sure you support your local cinemas and keep watching those movies. And I will catch you later.